Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. This is our very first Mastermind of 2021, and I just really want to thank our team. We've got Dee Rivera. How are you, Dee?
Good. I love your dog. I can't wait to meet her.
I should have brought her up here, but she would jump around on my keyboards, and then I wouldn't be able to have the Zoom.
Beautiful.
Thank you. How are you, Del?
Hi, I'm great. I'm here in New York, and we're looking forward to collaborating with a lot of the members. So chat with us. I left my information, and you can connect with us to collaborate.
Yeah, we've got lots of good things going on. You and Sharon are doing something. Hey, Sharon, how are you?
I'm Melissa. Hi, ladies. Happy New Year. So excited to have Mastermind back. And yes, I'm so looking forward this year. There's so much going on. Dale and I are working on an amazing collaboration for models who are looking to really build on their modeling career. So we'll leave you some information on that. If you're an aspiring model or a current model, you can check that out. It's a free workshop to help you get your business set up for success.
Very awesome. Yeah, it should be fascinating. And Catherine, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I'm getting situated in my new abode here in Staten Island at the mansion. So, and just working towards New York Fashion Week with all of the different machinations of COVID compliancy and getting designers, and it's really been it's challenging curating in these days. That's for sure.
Right. Well, yeah, that reminds me. So you and Dee both have something going on for New York Fashion Week. Do you guys want to tell us real quick what it is?
Yeah, I'll go first, if you don't mind, Dee, because I'm talking. So, yeah, I'm doing a hiTechMODA and Regen Runway at the New Yorker Hotel. It's on 34th and 8th, and it's a beautiful ballroom, and it'll be on February 14th. We're having 4 shows, 12, 2, 4, and 7, and you can find out more about it in hiTechMODA. Of course, we have a limited amount of people that we can bring on board, so to tell everyone, oh, come and volunteer or whatever, there's limited ticket sales and limited volunteer situations and opportunities, but just hit me up because you never know, and we can do a lot of things virtually. So it's going to be very interesting. It's called Spotlight on the New Era of Fashion.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah. So Dee, what are you doing?
So as you know, Melissa, we're doing Times Square Fashion Week. We're doing an out of the box experience, as you know. I don't like to share too much because I want people to see it in the news, but I just spoke to the producers at Pix 11, and they're going to come and document the whole thing and then announce it right before Valentine's. So it's February 13th. It's called the Fall in Love Collection. Oh. And we're going to be doing the same kind of similar thing, but it's going to be something very, very different. And we're partnering with a lot of New York City partners because we're trying to have New York come back. And I don't know if you know that News One did this New York Forever. They're doing a campaign. So we're really trying to bring New York back to where it is, where it was, and what, it still will be. So I'll talk to you more AB, but we're excited. It's going to be amazing. I'm just very grateful, especially because Melissa believed in this vision. Last year, she partnered with me, and she partners with me with all my crazy ideas. But, so I'm very grateful for Fashion Mingle, for Melissa, for Beth and her team.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Okay, so we have Randy back. Randy, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, you want to tell everybody real quick what you do?
Sure. So I've been in the industry for over 3 decades, working for lots of different companies in that time. And about 10 years ago, I went on my own, and I help brands build purpose and integrate that with design, branding, and product development as part of the process. So it's all connected and it all works together, and it's all part of one story. So I do everything from concept through execution, and everything in between. So that's the design, the merchandising, the sourcing, the packaging, the branding, for apparel, accessories, and lifestyle products. And we use like a 360-degree approach. So everything is connected, they work together, and this way everything builds purpose into your brand and creates a legacy.
Love that. Love it. And we have, for the first time, we've got one of our VIP members, Kim Mo, who is a fabulous stylist from Houston. Hi, Kim. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be on. Thank you for having me. Just really excited to be able to collaborate with you guys and try to get some ideas on how I can expand my business further here in Houston.
I love Houston.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for joining us. And so I'm very excited to introduce you to Jessica Masters. Jessica is the founder of Story Magic, where she works with businesses and nonprofits and universities to help them learn how to have effective storytelling. And we do know that storytelling is a really important part of communicating what our brands are about. And I know me personally, I think I'm terrible at it. So I'm very excited to have Jessica here to lead us through this. So Jessica, tell us about how you got into this type of career.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that fine introduction, Melissa. And I just want to say first that you may think you're terrible at it, but as a human being, you have everything you need to exercise those muscles. So I'll just throw that out there because I know that's a story a lot of people have. You know, for me, it goes back over a decade ago. I was working at a desk job in an insurance agency, and I was fresh out of college into the last recession, and I was sitting typing away. And the door to my office busts open and the head of sales storms in. He's this big guy. He's like the money guy, you know, and he throws his weight into my office and he says, Jess, what are you doing going to India? Because word had circulated around the water cooler that I was going to go to India and I was leaving this job. I was really just saving money to go and do that. And, you know, what he wasn't asking was why, but that was sort of the secret question, right? He had this very critical, attacky energy. And instead of getting defensive, which would have been so easy, right? I just thought, well, why? And then I told him a 30-second story. It took like no time at all about how I saw it as a part of my continuing education because I had a degree in international development. I thought it wasn't over. And he melted. He just had this 180-degree transformation. He said, you know, I used to have a dream of going to Scotland. I don't know, my dad's from Scotland, my grandfather's from Scotland. I just always wanted to go, but then you get older and you have responsibilities and you have a family and suddenly it's not so simple anymore. So you know what, good for you going now. And then he turns and he leaves my office and I'm sitting there like a coconut has just fallen on my head. Like he came in a critic. He was like totally thinking he was right, you know, had his own understanding of what I should be doing with my life and career. You know, when are you going to settle down and get serious with your career? And then he walked out inspired and supportive and like remembering parts of himself that he'd forgotten. And all I gave him was a story. And that was like this light bulb moment for me. And it just set me on this path of like consuming everything that I could learn about it, you know, all different angles. So that's where it all started.
That's amazing. So then you got into presenting workshops and you're also a one-on-one coach. Is the purpose of the storytelling process that you recommend, is it to turn a negative into a positive, or is there more to it than that?
Oh, great question. I'm of the opinion that, I mean, story is such a foundational human practice. There's so many applications. You can look at it in so many different ways. That's just how I happened to get into it. But when I started applying what I was learning, you know, from neuroscience and marketing and sales and performance and conflict resolution and negotiation and all these different angles that you could lenses for storytelling. And I started applying that to my client situations. I mean, the results that they were able to get are just amazing. You know, people saying, well, let me know where to send the check, and let's demo this in 12 of our buildings. And, you know, wow, I can't wait to tell everybody about this, right? So it's just got so many different applications, and I get like, I'm gonna stop there because I can talk for hours about this, but yes, I would say it's very broad, and everybody has a different challenge and opportunity around it.
Okay, so that leads me to, like, what are the different types specifically of the stories that any kind of business owner needs to have in their back pocket that they can share with people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a few stories come to mind as being sort of critical and foundational for anybody who's in a leadership position or starting a business or growing a business. And it sort of depends, you know, on the role that you want to take with your business. But one of them you can think of is the inception story, which is, I just gave you an example of my inception story. That's the moment when something became clear to me, like that wasn't clear to me before. It's a turning point, whether you learn something, you discover something, you see something in a new way, you see an opportunity, you make a discovery, right? That's an inception story. It's very valuable for a founder when they're pitching, for example, because investors want to know, why would I invest in you? Why are you the right person to do this? What's going to motivate you to keep going when it gets really tough? And I actually want to plant a seed for later if Randy gets to talk about a person that she collaborated with. Her client had this story about her grandmother, you know, encountering this mastectomy market of bras that was so industrial when she went through breast cancer, and how terrible that shopping and fashion experience was for her, and that inspiring her to go and build this business. So Randy, maybe you can talk about that a little later. That's one type, is the inception story. Not everybody resonates though with that. It's like, well, you know, I can't really pinpoint a moment. Sometimes it takes digging deeper. Another story that I think is critical, doesn't matter what you're doing or what you're selling or the service or the product, is the impact story. And that's when you can either tell it in your own words, or you can have your customer or client tell it for you. That's the idea of, how are people's lives different because your business or service exists, right? Like what is different about their experience, how they feel about themselves, what they feel is possible for them, how they walk down the street, like all of those things. You know, I know that this is fashion oriented. So the sort of before and after, before I encountered this and after, the impact that your business or product or service is having on people. And that can be really effective in many different channels, like many different platforms. And one of them is when somebody says to you, well, what's in it for me? Like, why should I try this? And you can say, you know, I'm thinking of somebody who is really similar to you in these ways, who took a chance and, you know, tried the product or tried the service or hired me, and here are the results that they got, and here's how they were transformed. And it just activates your audience's imagination about what's possible for them. Because a secret, which maybe we'll talk about, is that story's not really about what happened in the past. We use what happened in the past as a proxy for what could happen in the future, right? We're all wondering what happens next. So the story is really about what happens next. That's the second type. And then another type that I think contains like a lot of room for creativity, and the different ways you like to tell stories, the different platforms you like to tell stories on, whether it's Instagram or it's LinkedIn, or, you know, all the different styles and opportunities there are, is the value story. And that's a sense of, you know, when it comes down to it, when you have to make a tough decision or prioritize something, or you have a limited budget, or you need to hire people, what principles or values are you consulting? And what do you use to make those decisions? So that, and there's just so many places where in business we get tested, right? Will we take the easy way, or will we do it this other way? Will we prioritize integrity, or will we prioritize the cheap way? And stories about when we make those decisions and how those manifest to us can speak volumes about how committed we are to those values. Because it's one thing to say, you know, I'm really honest. Like I have my values up on the wall of my startup, you know, as opposed to actually telling a story that gives us a vicarious experience of how that value was put to the test and upheld. And that's a very, you can tell that everywhere in so many different places and formats. So that's another fun one as well.
Yeah, those sound so important. And I love thinking of it in those 3 buckets because as someone who has pitched to investors and, had to speak in front of people who were challenging me about Fashion Mingle as a startup, you really need to know what message is going to actually penetrate and make an impact, because I think as you are, especially if you're in the startup world, investors especially are always looking for a reason to tell you it's a bad idea, because that's just like what they do. And you have to get through that barrier. You have to be able, you have to know that they're going to tell you you're stupid and that's a really bad idea. And then having these stories obviously is what you need to have on the tip of your tongue to be able to come right back to them and say, no, this is why.
Yeah. And I would say, with respect to investors in particular, like a story that I remember is standing in line. I was at an event at the Exploratorium in San Francisco. I was waiting for my little glass of complimentary red wine. I was standing next to an extremely well-dressed, tall man, very handsome. And he told me he was a VC investor up from LA. And I didn't even tell him what I do. I said, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten about investing? And he said, the best advice I ever got was to stop investing in the product and to start investing in the person. Mm-hmm. And I'm always floored whenever somebody walks in and leads with their personal story, because that's what I want to know.
That's great.
And there's so many great products out there, right? But what makes you the person that's going to make it successful when you're up against those challenges that you talk about?
Exactly. Every business is difficult to build. It doesn't matter whether, it's a tech startup or it's a fashion design line that you're starting. It's always difficult. And so I love what you say. You mentioned that you need to know the end first. And I know that's something that Randy has talked about as well. Tell us why we need to know the end first when we're crafting our story.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Randy, for bringing that into the space. I think that people forget storytelling is a word that gets really abused and confused with other things. We think it's a history or it's a why statement or it's, all these different things that we can confuse for it. But story is an act of making meaning. It is a way that we turn information into meaning, and that's what we're all hungry for. What does it mean? What should I do based on what it means? And so knowing the end is essentially knowing, well, what am I trying to communicate with my story? What meaning am I making? When I told that story about the investor, for example, the meaning that I wanted to make is you can have a great product, but it's not always about the product, right? VCs want to invest in who you are. And so invest in that, right? Knowing how to articulate who you are. There's so many examples, but when you know what you're trying to communicate, you can selectively, because a story, it requires you to be selective about what details you include. It's not a history, right? A story has a point. So when we're selective, we know that we're choosing details that will keep the story concise enough that we don't abuse our audience's time and attention. We can still make the point. And when we know where the story is ending in the point that we want to make, then we can stop talking. We don't have to, keep adding and keep adding and keep adding and keep explaining what you see, particularly in the business community. People have their perfect elevator pitch. You're standing there processing it, like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'm thinking about this, how this applies to my business. And then they perceive that moment of your processing as, oh, I didn't get my point across. And so then you see that sort of adding and adding and adding, and then suddenly they're just talking. It's so depositioning to be out on a limb talking when you've already made your point. You just don't
Yeah,
know.
for sure. Yeah, the saying too much is a really bad habit that a lot of people have.
I think that's a really great point, Melissa. I just want to like zoom in and double click on this for just a second, because I think that really great storytelling is a co-creative act. It should be two-way. Even if you're the one telling the story, it should be a conversation with your audience's imagination, right? So the monologue, the broadcast is like, that's not what you want. Everybody wants to participate. Everybody wants to feel invited. And even the language that you use can be signaling to the imagination that you're participating, even if you're not speaking. So I think a great story is more of a conversation, and it's co-created with two people.
Okay,
Or more.
wonderful. Well, I want to bring Randy in because with Randy's business model, where she's helping brands that have a purpose, create everything from, the concept to the product. When you learned about Jessica, you realized that this was something that you could actually use in your own business model. And so you took coaching classes from Jessica. Tell us about that experience and what you got out of it.
Well, storytelling, I learned, is a communication strategy. So it plays into your messaging, it plays into your positioning, it plays into your strategy and your overall branding. And then being able to, like you were just saying, use stories in a way that will get your point across. And if you know the end of the story first, the point that you want to make, you can kind of craft the story and make that connection with who you're speaking with, and be able to make the point you want to make. So for example, a question I get asked a lot is, well, how do you work? What's your process like? And so I talk about what I mentioned before, the 360-degree approach. Like, maybe nobody knows what I mean by that. So it's basically where design and marketing work together. So it's not like everything is separate. It's not the design is separate from the sourcing and it's separate from the merchandising. It all kind of works together in an integrated way. And so recently I was looking for some healing materials. So fabrics that had healing characteristics to them for a project I was working on. And I found this company and we also want sustainability as part of our brand here also. So this is for a client. And so I found a company that makes a fabric with aloe vera, and it has caffeine encapsulated, or ginseng. And so I got really excited, like, wow, that's so cool. I never heard of that before. And so I contacted this factory, and it turns out that they also are really well known for sustainable practices in the way that they create the fabrics and the way that they work. And wow, great, double win. They're sustainable and they have the healing properties. And then I find out that they have a special compression technology that has never been used before. It's a brand new patent that's come out. And this is a collection about it's activewear and athleisure around around the sport of polo, actually. Mm-hmm. And so we are now going to create this great compression pant that's never been done before with this fabulous fabric that's sustainable. So this is now evolving into making the product offering better. And by aligning the purpose, the product became better. And we also have a sustainable marketing story to tell. So this whole thing just snowballs into new opportunities. So by you looking for how to put purpose into your brand, how to put purpose into your design, you get passionate about it. It creates your legacy, and the whole thing just works together. Mm-hmm. So you see how I now was able to tell that story, but I also told you how I work and what I do.
Gotcha. So we're going to do a little exercise now. So Kim, like I mentioned before, is a stylist from Houston, and she's a gorgeous Instagram. So please follow her. Kim, did you put your Instagram in the chat?
I did.
Okay, good. It's very, very pretty. I love all of her clothes.
Thank you.
And so our experiment we're going to do is Jessica is going to talk with Kim and ask her the questions to pull out her story. So Jessica, I'll let you take it away.
Fabulous. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Jess.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Excellent. I'm curious. So I know you're a stylist, a fabulous stylist, and I would just love to hear in your own words what you feel like is exciting to you about your business.
I've always loved fashion. I'm sure a lot of people have this story since I was a little girl. And I love the way you can express yourself through your clothes. And when you have on the right pieces, how it makes you feel. And it brings out that confidence that you can do anything when you're wearing the right pieces. It's exciting to me because I love to see all the different silhouettes, the colors, the prints and patterns that come out on the runway. I love the way my customers, or clients, I should say, feel when they have on their wardrobe. For example, one of my clients the other day has been posting several pictures. She added a new IG picture, and she was just kind of posing, and I can see the difference in her confidence when she was taking that photo versus the pictures that she had up before. And that excites me. That makes me feel great because I've made someone feel confident in their wardrobe.
Fabulous. So I hear this word coming out, confidence, and
Yes.
sort of that it's, and so I'm hearing, yeah, okay, it's about the wardrobe, and we love the fabrics and we love the silhouettes, and there's a lot to be loved there, but it's about this experience around creating or unleashing confidence in your clients, right?
Yes.
And I wanna just invite you to tell us, if you can think about, sort of the course of your career and all the different clients that you've gotten a chance to partner with, and, it doesn't have to be your favorite person. If you have a favorite client, that's fine. But was there one client in particular that stands out to you as, when they came to you? I want you to tell us when they came to you, how you perceived them and what your conversations were like and how they described what they were struggling with.
One client in particular, she had lost a substantial amount of weight, and her mindset was still that she was a larger person, even though she wasn't. And she really struggled with buying clothes for her current size. And she said, I would go into the store and I would pull things off the rack, and it was my previous size, not realizing I'd get home and put them on. And I'm like, okay, this is very ill-fitting. This is not what I needed. So then we kind of, did like a little map of, okay, this is what your current size weight is. These are the pieces based on your body type that are going to make you look amazing with whatever piece you choose. So we started picking her core pieces, and over time, as she realized what she can put together with just those core pieces that we chose, she started sending me pictures of, hey, Kim, this is something that I picked out for myself today when I went shopping. What do you think? I love this. And I was like, oh my gosh, she did it all on her own. And I was like, this is why I do what I do, because she was able to take the information that I gave her, put those together, those elements together, and style herself. So that is why I do what I do.
That's fabulous. So I love this, because I'm hearing in your description of when she came to you, that often we don't have the ability to see ourselves clearly, right? She had lost all this weight. Objectively, she was a different size and, had different clothes that would fit her, but she couldn't see that, right? She was just trapped in this identity of who she had always been, and that story about being a bigger person and needing to buy bigger clothes, right? Yes. So I see this is like sort of linked to, your identity in a way. And then tell me, you said when she was able to style herself, that was very exciting. I wonder about, maybe it's this client or another client. What would you say was, I'm actually thinking of a story that I heard once about the leather jacket that a stylist chose for somebody, and what she was able to accomplish because of the confidence of being in that leather jacket. I wonder if you can think, whether it's this client or another one, of a time when wearing the outfit that you helped them choose, or wearing the outfit that they chose for themselves based on your work together, when they went in and maybe they pitched something, or they went to a wedding and impressed their ex, husband, or some sort of image of what that confidence looks like in action.
Yes, actually. So this last outfit that she sent me in particular was velvet. So I had posted a velvet look, how to style velvet this last December, and how you can wear velvet throughout the year. It doesn't have to be a seasonal fabric. So she sent me this picture. She said, this is the outfit that I'm going to be wearing today. I've gotten this velvet blazer and I've paired it with, you know, these slacks. I'm going to go out and actually do a video. She's a realtor. She actually did a video, and she walks through the video, and I can see when she was walking through the video, like the confidence that she had in the suit and how she carried herself in the video. And she sent it to me and she's like, what do you think? She's like, I wore that suit, didn't I? And I was like, yes, you did.
Wore it.
Yes. And that was something that she hadn't done before. So I can see now that she's comfortable in the sizes that she's picking. She's feeling more comfortable piecing together looks, that she's, you know, feeling more comfortable to, you know, do videos, take more pictures, something that she didn't do before.
Now, let's think about this, right? Because we get so many messages now about how powerful video is as a tool for our businesses. Now, before, when she came to you, she's picking mismatched clothes. She hasn't fully embraced her identity that is reflecting all the hard work that she's done to create this inner transformation and a physical transformation. And it's showing in her confidence in the way she wears her clothes. And then after, not only can you see the confidence that she has, you know, she's embracing all of that, her new self, and able to style herself even without you, which is so gratifying. But now that is propelling her to do something for her business that she probably would not have felt comfortable doing, and actually utilizing video as a tool to build her business as a realtor, which we can only imagine, you know, is very powerful for lead generation and for establishing credibility and a reputation in your industry. So my point is, and the thing that I really want to draw out is that it was not hard at all for you, Kim, to think of a specific person and how these ideas showed up for her personally and her journey of transformation. And that, I think, is like the biggest challenge of storytelling. It's that story sort of expands the scope of what we can talk about, right? Anything can be a relevant story as long as the moral is relevant. But our challenge is to reduce the scope of what we're telling the story about. We don't actually want to tell a story about our whole business all at once or our whole selves all at once. That's a recipe for paralysis and for not, you know, oh, how do I sum myself up, right? But that one character or that client or that example can serve as a very powerful metaphor for the transformation that you're offering people through your business. And that, like, going down to that concrete level, what she looked like, her voice that she used, you know, the funky glasses that she wore, the velvet suit that she styled herself in, that's the kind of language that engages our imagination and allows us to see exactly what you're talking about. And seeing a face, like putting that transformation on a face, makes it meaningful to us. It makes it relevant to us, and it helps us put ourselves in her shoes and say, oh, I think maybe I could benefit from some styling from Kim. Maybe I'll reach out to her. So that's an example of an impact story. And you have, I bet if we sat here for another 30 minutes, you could come up with 3 others, like easy peasy. But how do you feel right now about that?
I like that. And I see when you asked me the questions in the way that you did, I was like, aha, now I see what she's trying to get out of me. So I just need to know to do that from the very beginning when I'm, let's say, doing my elevator pitch, or I'm actually talking to someone for the first time. I need to condense the story a bit and be very specific and bring out that imaginary thought, like, oh yes, I could, you know, wear that. Oh, I could see myself doing this. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I want to point out one more thing,
yes.
Which is that one of the benefits of using an impact story is that it takes the focus. They may have asked, well, what's it like to work with you, right? And that makes us feel very self-conscious. It's like, well, okay, I have to sell myself. I have to like describe my process, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But when we can take the focus and say, well, I'm reminded of a client that I had we get to revel and enjoy her success in a way that is not self-promoting, it's not self-conscious, it's not really about us, it's about the impact that we had on this person. And that is so liberating to be able to celebrate it and to say, isn't that amazing that she had this experience? Like, that's why I do what I do. So it frees us from that pressure, which is one of the magical aspects of storytelling.
One thing I really like that you did, Jessica, when you first started talking to her, you said, I'm curious. And that to me is the essence of good storytelling, is bringing that curiosity to your clients and also having them be curious about you. So then that exchange is set up. But I thought that was really an interesting choice of words. I'm curious.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Catherine. I mean, we cannot overstate how important curiosity is in telling our stories and receiving stories from other people and in maintaining that sense of like peaked attention, right? Who wants to spend time explaining things when you could be engaging that imagination and getting them to lean in and ask more questions and be like, oh, how interesting. That's a great observation. Very important.
Well, I want to bring in our other panelists too, and maybe they have some questions they can ask you about telling their own story. I'll call on Dee first, because Dee is in PR. So she's constantly has to be telling the stories of her clients. So Dee, tell us about that experience. Like, do you find that your clients don't know how to tell their own story?
Yeah, most of them don't. I am always trying to figure out stories because I have to pitch to a lot of press, and it's all about telling a story. Like, I'm going to give you a really perfect example. I represent a celebrity dentist, and who the hell wants to hear about teeth? Not many people. Many people are scared to go to the dentist. But what I love about my client is that he's really changed people's lives by smile makeovers. Like, people have gotten married, they've gotten better jobs. So one of the things that I did was we pitched a Valentine's pitch. We pitched a New Year, New You. But what I did for Valentine's is I called it From Date to Mate, and how to attract the perfect mate with the power of your smile, even through a mass society. And Pix 11 loved it, and they did a whole story on it yesterday. He was live on TV. This is his thing. Like, he actually has patients that have gotten married because they freaking fixed their teeth. Like, and so, that's just one message, right? But I totally agree with you, Jessica, that you have to think outside the box. You got to think about stories and be authentic. Like, don't lie. Don't create a story that's not true, because then people can see authenticity versus a copycat, right? So you really have to be true to yourself, but true to the story, true to the brand, and it has to make sense. So I agree with you 100%.
I think that's a great point, Dee, because it's about the story. Because you hear PR talking about angles, and to me, that's
I'm not about the angle. I'm about it's very key that you listen, right? So I'm all about curious. Like, I listen to the client. I'm like, okay, so what makes this dentist different than hundreds of dentists in New York City?
Right.
And there is a big difference, but you got to pull that out of your clients, then create a message, then create a story, then create a pitch.
Yeah. Dale, you've got a great story, because you started out as a model, and then you now you have your own modeling agency. So do you ever have any trouble telling that story, or do you feel like you've gotten that down?
I find I can go on and on. So my issue is always how to make it concise, so if you give me a topic, I'll expand a little too much. So I love what Jessica was pinpointing, and just how to pull out the pieces that are most important and relevant and get you to your end story. So I think that's fantastic. And in our business, it's like the story about me, but then it's also our clients, our models, as well as brands and manufacturers. So we change lives. Sometimes models who come as like diamonds in the rough, and our whole philosophy and personality and culture of the company is like very supportive and training and patience, which is not really known in our industry so much. So I feel like we've captured that niche just by being authentic and being ourselves and the love of connecting people. And then on the brand and like manufacturing side, who are our clients also, our testament to them is usually the models that we sign. They reflect who we are and how our brands and manufacturers business is improved by working with us, and return on investment and their sales improving and their image being elevated. So all of that ties together, and I love that there's so many angles to it. All the points you've made so far are really relevant. I'm learning a lot. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, I mean, Dale brings up, I think, a issue that everybody has is the run-on story that, because you're nervous and you don't practice enough. Like, can you give us some hard tips about how to do that? Because I've always heard, your elevator speech needs to be like 1 minute. And I used to belong to a networking group a long time ago where we had to stand up and do our elevator pitch every single week so that we could get used to it. And, it was just so obvious. It's like, you have to practice that. And not right before you walk into the room for your meeting, so, which is what I usually do after all these years. So, can you give us any tips on, like when should our story be a certain length? Should there be, like any points that we need to make that would just help us get started with creating at least one story for our brand?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I want to distinguish between a story, which is a particular format, which requires particular language, from an elevator pitch or, sort of a summary statement of who you are and what you do. They're both valuable and there are different contexts that we use them. So I just want to ask you which one you want to focus
on. Impact.
Like the impact story?
Yeah.
Sure. So one of the ways to think about it being very simple, the thing that we naturally do that leads to run-on stories is we say, and then, right? And then this happened, and this happened, and this, and that, and that. And we want to include all that information because it makes us feel safe and secure, knowing that we're not leaving anything out. But again, coming back to that selectivity, a story is very simple. It's just, well, something happened. That's the essence of story. Something happened. And for example, if we were to look at Kim's case, right, and the impact story, what happened is that Kim happened. She was the catalyst to create change. And so on the other side of that change, you have before Kim and you have after Kim, or before and after this transformation. And you'll notice that the two questions that I asked Kim to illustrate that transformation was, what did she complain about when she came to you? And then what did she celebrate? And what was she doing differently when she left you? And so notice that what I didn't ask is, well, what was the process? And which stores did you take her to? And what points did you give her about what to look for on the racks? All the questions about process are traps. That'll get you going into that and then place. But if you focus on before and after, when she came to me, she complained of this, and she was looking like this. She had just lost a lot of weight. And when she left me, here's this new position that she was in with this new, thing to celebrate, self to celebrate. Mm-hmm. That can be a very simple way to communicate an impact story. And there are definitely, there's a variety of structures that you can use depending on what story you're telling. But I think it really helps just to think of, okay, a story is about something happened, and really it's something different happened, right? It's not just the same old stuff that happens every day. Mm-hmm. It's something different happened. So there's the old world, something different happens, and then the new world. It's just be 3 points. It can be as simple as you need.
Yeah, that I love that, thinking simple like that, the before and after. That's perfect. Mm-hmm. I want to get Sharon in. Sharon, you have a great story because you're a lawyer and you have worked in a lot of different types of law, but you recently started your own law firm, Rockamova Law. So you have a story to tell now. And then you're also doing webinars, different educational types of opportunities, and you're a mom. I see you talking about your kids on social media because you really feel so passionate about estate planning. So do you feel like you have a story that you've worked out with Rockamova Law yet?
Yes, thanks, Melissa. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, as you mentioned. I left my big cushy firm job and started my own practice, I did create an inception story, as Jessica mentioned, about why and what inspired me to do that. Of course, working with entrepreneurs being the catalyst for that, and helping them really expand and grow. And the purpose of my law firm is truly to help entrepreneurs build, grow, and protect their legacy. And I'm wanting to be a part of that from the very beginning, and in order to help them really support that growth with the legal foundation. So I have gone through the inception story. The impact story is probably something I need to work on a little bit more. I am one of those people, I don't like to talk about myself. So, I have testimonials and things, but I think, as Jessica mentioned, it'll be a lot easier for me to tell new clients, what they're going to get out of working with me by sharing the stories of what has happened with, clients that have come to me and things that have happened and how I've been able to help change their lives and their businesses. So that's something I'm definitely going to work on. The other thing I had a question about was the value story. You mentioned, explaining how that value was put to this test. Could you elaborate a little bit more about how we could, explain that?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, I just want to pluck out the word that you used, which is explain. And to me, the word explain is sort of a red flag. It's like it's a sign that we're sort of reverting into what is a very comfortable status quo of communication. I have to explain. And if we start with the assumption that your audience has an imagination, and what we have to do is activate that imagination, then really what we want to do is illuminate. We want to show them. We want to give them an experience that makes them feel what we're trying to talk about. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I think it's a very valuable thing to keep in the front of your mind or the back of your mind, wherever you keep things that are that you're keeping track of. And then in terms of the value story, like right now, I'm reminded of a time when I had a client who was hiring someone, or he was interviewing somebody to be a chief of staff, and looked at her resume and saw, oh, you were working for yourself for 5 years, and then you quit, and now you want to work here? Like, what happened? What happened? Why? I don't understand why. And she said, I built my business. I love my business. The recession hit. Sales fell off a cliff. I could not afford to pay my vendors. And I just couldn't live. I could not live with myself if I were not going to be the type of person who didn't fulfill my debts. And it was a really tough decision. It sort of broke my heart, but it's more important to me to make sure that my vendors get paid than it is for me to have the business that I want. And so I closed shop and I'm starting over. I mean, how much do we know about her values through that story, right? She values being accountable to the people that she makes promises to. She has integrity in how she operates in her sales, right? Even if she could have built up debt and kept it going and can stretch that runway, she didn't. She did the hard thing. So that's an example of that pressure and sort of making a tough decision that illustrates what you value. But it doesn't have to be that they're put to the test. Those are just sort of the most illuminating. I know Randy and I worked on, I know her values, right? Randy, I don't want to speak for you, but I know that positivity and creativity and impact are 3 words that you will think of and hear again and again when you hear Randy's stories. Those are ideas and themes that get reinforced when she chooses between this fabric or that fabric, this supplier and that supplier. You know, this one's going to create this much waste or use this much plastic. And it's like, well, I'm going to go with this more expensive one that is going to have less of an impact on the environment, right? So whatever you decide that you value, the real power for your stories is that it's backed up by your actions. And so you can tell a story about an action that you took where that value is visible in action. And that way we don't have to just take your word for it that you value integrity. We can see it happening in our mind's eye. Does that make sense to then answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, Jessica, is as the older you get, the more stories you have.
Hallelujah.
And I have a lot of stories.
I
but
bet.
I kind of have to select based on what part of my business I'm doing, which story to tell for that. Because, you know, I've got the comic book widow story that doesn't really have anything to do with the fashion stylist and curator story. And so I try and keep them separate. Is that a good idea?
100%.
Yeah.
If we're going to embrace this idea that a story is co-created with your audience, then that means you have to know who you're talking to, and you have to know what they care about, what they're thinking about, which parts of your story are going to resonate with them and be relevant for them. And this can be intimidating, I think. When it's like we have all this freedom about which parts of our story to emphasize and when, and knowing what to do when. It takes practice, but I think it's also extremely liberating that there doesn't have to be this fear that it's not that you're shape shifting, it's that you're doing your audience a service by asking what will they find relevant, how can I engage them, where can I meet them on their level, and enroll them in this and have them co-create with me. So great observation, Catherine.
Well, listen, we're about done with our hour of Jessica's time, which we are so grateful for. We do have one question that just came over chat, so we'll end with that. And then I want to tell everybody about the special offer that Jessica's giving us. So Rahilis asks, what is the purpose of the story in your understanding? It seems that it is not to tell someone everything about you, but to spark their interest and curiosity in your brand. Is that on target? That's what she's getting from this.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe assumption. I think the role of story ultimately, whether in business or elsewhere, is to create connection with people. It's how we communicate. It's how we decide. It's how we make sense of our lives. And so the ability to articulate something in a way that someone else can not only understand, but also feel connected to and inspired by is a huge source of power, but it's also a source of what it means to be human and just that connection and that authentic, satisfying relationship that we're all after. So that's sort of the lens that I take to it. Sometimes I get questions about, wasn't storytelling manipulation because you're, this, that, the next thing. And any powerful tool, it depends on your intent, like money or business, a tool will be in service of the intent of its user. And so my view is that storytelling is a vehicle for human connection and, if you can build your community and have that sense of being connected to something bigger than yourself and involve other people in feeling connected to something bigger than yourself, what a gift is that?
Absolutely. And, with the so many messages that are constantly coming at us from so many different areas as business owners, we have to get our message out, and we have to really get people quickly to understand why it's important to work with us, what we're offering that's unique. So I really appreciate the opportunity to kick off this season's masterminds with storytelling, because Randy actually came to me about the idea, and I was like, that's perfect, because we want to do masterminds this year kind of in a stair step to help you get your brand started off on the right foot at the beginning of the year and build on it as we go along. And so I thought storytelling is the absolute perfect place to start. So I really appreciate, Jessica, you sharing this with us. And then I'm also just super excited to share with everybody that you're giving us a special offer for your 12-week storytelling accelerator course. So tell us about your MAGIC program.
Yeah. Yes, MAGIC with 2 C's is an acronym. This is, it sort of represents my foundational training. When you think of, it's a magic method for telling simple, true, concise, effective stories in business and in life. And so it's a step-by-step framework. M is for mindset, because so much of this is about how you're looking at it, right? What are you actually trying to accomplish? A is for authority, and really tapping into your inherent authority as a storyteller and a business owner in this case. G is for grounding and meaning making. What are you actually trying to say with your stories and making meaning with them? I is for improv and structure. So all those structural questions, like what framework do I use for this, and how can I make it this and apply for this context and that? That's that one. And then C is for character, really speaking the language of the imagination, getting your audience to lean in and activate, their participation in your story. And then finally, C is for context and call to action. And that's about you've gotten your audience to feel something, but now how do you get them to take the next step with you, right? And sort of how that shows up in different business contexts. So that's a little bit about the acronym, and it's my best offering right now. You're actually looking at the film set for, because we're filming it right now. And so it'll be ready in March. Very excited. It's the second version. I launched it in 2018. So this is all updated and ready for 2021. So I'm very excited about it.
Well, I put the details in the chat. So if you go to Jessica's site, just use the code MINGLE and you get $250 off the course, and you'll be able to, and then she will contact you and let you know when the official launch date is going to be.
I just want to clarify, because it hasn't launched yet. This is pre-launch. So you guys are in on the pre-floor. And so if you go to jessicamasters.com/ownyourstory, you'll be able to sign up for the list and get on the wait list, so that when it does launch, you can use that Mingle code and get your special VIP discount of $250 off. Wonderful. So just know it's not open yet, but it will be coming your way. Definitely get on the list.
Well, thanks so much for sharing all this knowledge with us, Jessica, and helping us get off on the right foot for 2021. And thank you so much to Randy for suggesting Jessica. And I'm really excited to see where you use these new tools that you've learned with your clients. And thank you, Kim, for joining us. It was wonderful to hear your stories and learn more about your business. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And to our lovely Fashion Mingle Mastermind team, I always feel like we just got the band back together. And exciting to have everybody.
We're taking it on the road.
Happy to be back all together.
Awesome. Okay, well, definitely we are getting geared up on the topics. Every Friday, 1 p.m., a new mastermind session with our Fashion Mingle VIP members. So thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Jessica.
Bye.